we'll be getting you insights into what really happened as far as the ill-fated Boeing Dreamliner flight Air India is concerned that was taking these passengers to London. We'll be getting all the analysis on the possibilities. A team of experts will be joining us to break down various aspects of what could have possibly gone wrong. Was it a technical glitch? Was it a mechanical failure? Or was it human error? Many questions that still remain as far as this particular crash is concerned. On the other side, we'll also be getting you a top leading global expert on aviation. James Giddy will be getting us all the insights as far as what really could have happened as well. He'll be joining us from London on that story.
"59 seconds is all it took. Smiles ended up in a disaster. "242 flyers were on the ill-fated plane. It crashed into a medical college, leaving several MBBS students dead. Eyewitnesses recall horror.
एकदम से आवाज आया, भूकंप जैसा लगा, बाहर आया तो धुआं धुआं, मालूम नहीं था मेरे प्लेन केस हुआ, ऐसा मालूम नहीं था। जो ऑफिस से बाहर निकला तो मैंने देखा कि आवाज जोर से आवाज आया विंग्स का, फिर पूरा धुआं धुआं भर गया, लोग यहाँ से भगदड़ मची। उसके बाद आके देख रहे थे ये हादसा की स्थिति।
Victims' families count losses.
हमारी ट्रेन जा रही थी,
1 बजे जा रही थी,
1:10 की फ्लाइट थी और जा रही थी तो लंदन। लंदन जाने से पहले ही क्रैश हो गया प्लेन।
मेरी सारी था वो कंप्यूटर थी, लंदन जा रही थी।
हाँ, फिर
1 घंटे में समाचार आ गया, प्लेन क्रैश हो गया है, कुछ भी समाचार नहीं मिला।
Air tragedy numbs India.
And it all happened in a matter of seconds. Just moments after liftoff from Ahmedabad, the London-bound Air India Boeing 787 Dreamliner burst into a ball of fire as it crash-landed soon after takeoff. Now, the debris fell also on various buildings around that area, including a medical college. On board that particular aircraft was, in fact, former Gujarat Chief Minister Vijay Rupani, who's also, in fact, the in charge of Punjab and was seen campaigning there in local elections for just a few days ago. Now, also after this incident, we've seen both Civil Aviation Minister Ram Mohan Naidu as well as Union Home Minister Amit Shah visit Ahmedabad to take stock of the situation on ground. Listen in to their reactions.
I'm totally shaken by the incident that has happened today near Ahmedabad airport. Very tragic and very, very horrific. And even till now, I have to say I'm in a state of shock. And also Honorable PM has called me and also told me to be there at the site and also look into the operations which is going on right now. And right now, if you ask me, I can only think about the passengers, their families. A lot of relief effort has been done already, right from Indian Army, NDRF, state police, medical departments, including aviation concerned departments. Everyone has attended immediately, the fire department. We are going to do a fair and thorough investigation.
10 ही मिनटों में हादसे के भारत सरकार के पास सूचना पहुंची। तुरंत ही मैंने मुख्यमंत्री जी, यहाँ के गृह मंत्री, होम डिपार्टमेंट के कंट्रोल रूम, सिविल एविएशन डिपार्टमेंट, सिविल एविएशन मंत्री, सभी से संपर्क किया। प्रधानमंत्री जी का भी तुरंत ही फोन आ गया और भारत सरकार और गुजरात सरकार के सभी डिपार्टमेंट एक साथ होकर राहत और बचाव कार्य में लगे।
Now, the DGCA has established a joint operational control room. A joint team of investigators will look into the investigation and other aspects. Meanwhile, there will also be investigators coming in from the United States as well as the UK, is what sources are indicating at this point of time. The Boeing Dreamliner aircraft, while it has not had any fatal air crashes in the recent past, has had certain accidents that have raised questions about the safety standards of the aircraft itself. What are these incidents? Let's break it down for you. In January this year, a United Airlines Boeing 7878 experienced a sudden loss of altitude, causing injury to 38 passengers. In June 2021, a British Airways 7878 suffered significant damage when its nose struck the ground at Heathrow Airport due to an engineering fault. There have also been multiple reports of technical malfunctions such as hydraulic leaks, flap issues and emergency landings involving this aircraft. Let's quickly open this up and take it across, in fact, to our viewers who are joining us. We have aviation experts who are with us at the moment, and we will, in fact, take it across right to them. Joining us at the moment is Mirza Faizan, who's an aerospace scientist and inventor of the Ground Reality Information Processing System. B.S. Siwach is Director General of Aviation Safety India. Captain Meenu Wadia is founder president of the Federation of Indian Pilots. Sanjay Lazar is aviation expert and CEO of Avia Laz, who's joining us. Captain Ehsan Khalid, ex-airline captain, instructor and examiner and veteran IF pilot, is with us. We also have Captain Sanjay Karve, who's an aviation expert. Let's come across to you first, Captain Meenu Wadia. What in your estimation would have happened? Is this, because many experts say that the possibility of a double engine failure is something that is extremely remote. Is that likely to have happened in this case? What could the possible cause be? Is there also any possibility of human error as far as this incident is concerned, judging by the footage and all that is available before us? Over to you.
Okay, first of all, it's extremely wrong for anyone to speculate what could have happened in this particular crash. However, I can tell you what could have happened, what the possibilities are. First of all, both engines failing is a very rare issue. With one engine failure normal, an aircraft can take off and continue even to a diversion airfield with a single engine. So that is not an issue. Multiple bird hits simultaneously on both the engines is also a possibility. Sabotage is also a possibility. Therefore, jumping to conclusions what could have happened is not fair. As far as bird hits are concerned, let me tell you, on a jumbo aircraft I was flying from Bombay, which has 4 engines, and we had just pigeons, multiple pigeons on front of the aircraft, which were ingested. And we were able to reject the takeoff at the V1, that is at the takeoff speed. And after investigation, we found out that 3 engines were totally written off in a jumbo. 3 out of the 4 engines were totally written off just by bird ingestion. So any possibility is right there. So, and therefore, the true picture will emerge only when the DFDR is analyzed and put to test. So right now, no one can be sure of what could have happened.
Okay. Right. No, I completely agree with you. Obviously, it's going to be the cockpit voice recorder and the digital flight data recorder, the black box as it's commonly known, that will get us an accurate picture of what's happened. And that will, of course, take a few days. But at the moment, people are very concerned and certainly very curious as to what exactly has transpired. And Mirza Faizan, notwithstanding the safety track record of the Dreamliner, which is a completely new template on which aircraft have been built, at least commercial aircraft have been built, this accident has certainly raised some serious questions. There have been questions that have been raised. Whistleblowers have talked about various issues of the joining of panels, so on and so forth. Have all of those issues been adequately addressed? Could there be any possibility even of a linkage of today's incident with those fears that have been expressed in the past? Mirza Faizan.
So, yes, there have been some whistleblowers, and most of them are talking about 737 MAX and the way Boeing handled the design, development, and manufacturing of 737 MAX. As far as Boeing 787 is considered, and it has an impeccable safety record. Yes, it is designed on a new platform, and this is one of the first time an aircraft has 80% composites body rather than the duralumin body. So, but that adds to the safety features, that adds to the robustness of the aircraft, right? And on those in those years when this aircraft was being developed, right, the late 1900s or early 2000s, I mean, Boeing was one of the best aviation company in the world. So I do not have any comments to make on the safety being compromised, in the manufacturing of this bird.
Right. But Sanjay Lazar, do you agree with that? Because it is a fact that when it comes to the 737 MAX, it is an aircraft that was grounded for a considerable period of time. Not just air operators here in India, but in different parts of the world had to actually ground those aircraft. And what was at least pointed out at that point of time is that Boeing is a company, and not just that, there were other incidents also that, led regulators in the United States to draw conclusions that Boeing was putting its profiteering before safety. Has that happened in the case of the Dreamliner? We certainly don't know yet. But isn't that one very real fear before us? Sanjay Lazar.
Well, Madhav, thanks for having me. It's a sad day in Indian aviation. My condolences go out to the families of the passengers, the crew and the students in that hostel. Very tragic for all of us and for people at Air India. I'd like to, you're right, in the Boeing 737 MAX was fraught with problems, and there were a number of aircraft that were grounded across the world because of those dodgy circumstances, so to speak. That being said, let me say this about the 787. We have more than 1,100 wide bodies flying in the skies today. They've flown over 5 million flights and over 30 million hours. And this is really the first big accident that we've seen. So it's a safe aircraft as it stands. The pilots flying this particular aircraft today were also extremely experienced pilots. So we need to get to the bottom of this. I would not like to speculate. 10,000 hours of flying experience is a lot. Let's, respect the pilot. Look at, even when you look at the videos, you see even after the failure of the engines or non-performance, how the pilot has struggled to keep it afloat. You can actually make out how it came down in a glide, and that will tell you that, it's not something that just happened. He's tried to control the aircraft. So let's, hold judgment on whether it's, the fault of the aircraft or the pilot or whatever. There's something catastrophic that did happen. Like Captain Wadia said, it could have been multiple, ingestion of birds or big vultures or whatever, or it could have been just catastrophic failure of both engines, which is unusual and rare, but could have happened. And the Mayday call went out and they started losing height. So, I'd like to just leave it at that. I don't want to get beyond that on the aspect of the 787.
Right, I think that's a very important point, and let me bring in Captain Ehsan Khalid on that. Captain Khalid, what is your perspective on this? Because, in addition to the role of the pilot, the bigger problem would have been that normally when there is any such problem, when the aircraft is airbound, the pilots are able to at least jettison the fuel before landing. Because if there is such a possibility of even, the worst scenario, which is that of a crash taking place. In this particular case, despite the fact that there were certainly some technical issues which the pilot was struggling with, he certainly did not have that kind of time to be able to jettison the fuel, and it would have been a full tank given that it's just taken off, isn't it?
Yeah, so aircraft are designed to fly with the kind of fuel and passengers that were taken on board. They are designed to be flying at that temperature from the runway length of 11,000 feet. So that is in no way a contributory factor. The aircraft descending on takeoff path can happen only because of two reasons. One is loss of power, and the second one is loss of lift. Loss of power can also cause loss of lift, but loss of lift can also happen because of other reasons. One of the reasons may be a wind shear kind of a thing, where the wind draft changes the wind direction and you have a loss of lift. That's called wind gust shear, whatever you want to call. But that doesn't seem to be the factor here, because the winds were light, just about 5 knots winds. The aircraft did leave the ground and start climbing, and we saw maybe about say 150, 200 feet it has gone up, and thereafter it has started to descend. One thing which all of us would agree is that the landing gear should have been up. But if you have loss of power on both the engines, landing gear cannot go up. So that is actually an indicative factor that there was loss of power, because electrics and hydraulics lift the landing gear up. So if both the engines have gone off on the takeoff path, there is no way that the pilots can take the landing gear up. Okay, so that could be the reason that landing gear hasn't gone up. The second thing is that yes, it would be probably first of its kind where the engines are going off simultaneously. They are losing power in such a timing that it is not even giving a yaw to the left and right. So it is a very bizarre case of accident in which we all are seeing the entire flight path, and between all 5-6 of us and many on other channels, we have got maybe 500 years of flying experience, and we can't actually find out what's wrong with the aircraft. So there are things that happen in the aircraft which is much faster than what human mind can comprehend, and during that particular point of time, actions that we do in the cockpit may or may not be exactly as was taught in classroom, because there are situations which actually real life situations are totally out of what we are trained for, and it is like we can't say this question is out of the book. Okay, absolutely. Maybe now the next generation of pilots and aircraft manufacturers will find a few defect, and thereafter they will institute a kind of an training profile or put up something that will preclude a thing like this to happen again. But the lesson that we will learn is very costly, because of lives have been lost. And why, all of us do agree, absolutely, is that we do not know what has happened and what has caused this. But definitely, bird strike taking away 2 engines on such a wide body aircraft will be as rare as you could think, because Captain Sully was lucky. He had Hudson River like almost a sea in front of him, and here Sabharwal had nothing, and he had to go into buildings. Okay, so very sad day. How to if it happens, and how to get out of it. Was there a way to get out of it? Because they declared Mayday, that means there were engine indications. There were indications that were telling them that we are into very bad situation. If there was no Mayday call, we would then consider that it was a pilot error to be because if a person has done a mistake, he will never be able to know what the mistake is, and there would be no Mayday call. So Mayday call was given is an indication that that pilot knew beforehand that the aircraft is not performing to safety limits. So but to come Absolutely. To any kind of a conclusion,
Captain Sanjay Karve on that. Captain Sanjay Karve, I think one of the interesting points being made over here by the previous speaker is about, the Dreamliner aircraft itself. And I was speaking to a couple of experts. When the Dreamliner came in, newer materials being used, that had its own share of teething troubles in terms of the panels and how they're fused together, etc. There was also the whole purpose of redesigning it in terms of envisaging how aircraft were designed earlier before the Dreamliner, and in this case where it was largely at least dependent upon the electronics and on each section performing separately. For instance, the kind of huge amount of hydraulic lines running through the aircraft, all of that had drastically changed. What really could have that played in terms of a role in terms when you talk about loss of power in both engines? What really could have perhaps driven that, if you consider really the fact that the Dreamliner, and it has performed extremely well for the past decade and 2 years or so? How would you look at it?
If you look at the 787, the induction part, especially in Indian aviation, or even otherwise, most of the 787s, the problems that were associated with it were linked to the electrical problems. Either the generator were underrated or they were overrated. They were having problems in the galley. Majority of the problems were in the galley of the aircraft. And these problems over a period of time were resolved with FAA's intervention, and Boeing had also stepped in. Over a period of time, now there is a school of thought that Boeing's standards have considerably gone down and they are more profit-driven than safety-driven. Now at this point of time, we do not have any concrete evidence to say, yes, it is because of profit. But if you look at the aircraft profile, the same aircraft today landed at 2 o'clock in the morning from Paris. So it flew an 8.5 hours flight from Paris to Delhi. After 6 hours halt, it has landed at Ahmedabad. It has had another 2.5 hours halt, and it was en route to UK. If you look at the profile that's taken from the airport camera, you will notice that the aircraft has taken off practically at the end of the runway. Obviously, a heavy aircraft, 40 degrees temperature, 11,300 feet of runway. You can see the dust being blown up when the aircraft gets airborne. So it was at its max haul-up weight. You don't have to lose entire power. Even a loss of thrust by 20 to 25% would be severely damaging to the safety of the aircraft. Now, why the landing gear was not raised has been brought out aptly that if you lose both the engines, there's no way you can raise the landing gear. Just a passing thought. Is there a chance, 0.001%, instead of raising the landing gear, someone raised the flaps which are at takeoff setting? This is just a 0.001% thought process, that instead of raising the landing gear, the flaps have been raised prematurely. So as an aircrew, I would not like to believe it, because the pilots are trained for this. Pilots are trained for such emergencies. So I would not like to believe this thought process. But when we're carrying out an investigation, we have to look at each and every factor as to what possibly could have gone wrong. But like it was aptly pointed out, this is the first case of an entire hull loss of a 787, which has been a very safe aircraft.
There's no, all options will have to be certainly exposed. We'll have to look at all aspects of this, but Mr. B.S. Sivach is also with us. Mr. Sivach, one of the passengers, interestingly, in the previous leg, that was, I believe, Delhi to Ahmedabad, has put out a video of the aircraft a few hours earlier to the crash. And the person has described how many of the facilities, from the air conditioning to the entertainment system to the navigation, were not functioning inside the aircraft. And that, certainly from the perspective of a traveling passenger, is one too many inconveniences. Inconvenience apart, the larger question is whether there were issues pertaining to safety which could perhaps have been fixed, could perhaps have been looked at in time. How do you look at this from the perspective of aviation, and what really could have been done? Because there would have been ground level checks before the aircraft finally took to air.
Thanks, Madhav. It is most shocking, terrible accident with loss of valuable lives. I, on behalf of Aviation Safety India, would like to convey our heartfelt condolences and prayers for those who have been injured for their speedy recovery. Now, in this particular case, the aircraft was fully serviceable. The pilots were highly qualified, well qualified, competent, professional. Till the time the aircraft took off, it had no problems. After takeoff, the aircraft has gained height of about 400 odd feet, and that is the time it experienced loss of thrust, probably on both the engines. The pilot did not lose his cool, did not panic, and under such conditions, just he had 400 odd feet from the ground and he has got both the engines off. He relayed his mayday call that the aircraft and its passenger are under serious threat of safety. After that also, the pilot displayed amazing skills in making sure that the aircraft was kept level, and he also tried to reduce the speed of the aircraft so that at the point of impact, the speed is minimum and losses to the aircraft and the lives will be minimum. So we must commend and compliment the pilots. Now, next question comes is, why the engines, both the engines, flamed out at the same time? Now, reasons can be many. We would not like to speculate. One reason I'd like to sort of tell you is that Ahmedabad is notorious for bird strike. And it is one of the possible cause for both the loss of thrust on both the engine could be the bird strike. Now, if only one engine had failed, this aircraft is quite capable of continuing to climb and then could have just landed safely back without any problem.
Absolutely.
So it was both the engines. You remember Captain Sully in case of that Hudson River landing? He had also lost both the engines and he managed to land the aircraft. Luckily, in his case, he had adequate
Captain
height.
Wadia, if I can quickly bring in Captain Wadia. Captain Wadia, how long is it before we will know what is actually in the black box, the data to be analyzed? Would it take a week, 10 days, a month, 2 months perhaps before we know what the probable cause of this particular crash is?
First of all, that is not very important, but the voice recorder you can get almost immediately. As soon as they retrieve the voice recorder, you can get information straight away. But the DFTR, the digital device, it gives it in a digital form and it takes weeks for it to be downloaded, first of all. Thereafter, it gives you only figures, and those figures to be analyzed by specialists itself takes another couple of weeks. So I'm sure you cannot expect details before a couple of weeks. Now, 1 second, let me just analyze what was been already said before. As far as the undercarriage is concerned, see the time frame when this aircraft was airborne. After takeoff, after rotation, it has gone climbing to about 400 or 500 feet, and that has taken approximately 11 seconds. Thereafter, when it comes down, it has taken approximately 15 seconds. So he has got just about 25 seconds or so in the whole scenario what has happened. Also, I may not conclude that the emergency happened when he was at about 400 feet and he suddenly came down. The emergency could have happened even earlier, just immediately after rotation and getting airborne. The aircraft has inertia, so it may have climbed with the inertia to even 400-500 feet. And when there was no other part...
What is the exact reason, whether it is some kind of a technical fault, a mechanical failure? Was there some kind of human intervention that was required? We can't speculate at this point of time. We will have to wait for the final answers to come in from both the aviation company that made the aircraft, that is of course Boeing, and the regulators to come out and give us a better sense of what has transpired. And certainly of course serious concerns and our prayers with all of the family members of those who have deceased in this very tragic air crash that took place in Ahmedabad. Thank you so much to our viewers for joining us this evening, and thank you to all our guests, Mirza Faizan, B.S. Siwaj, Captain Wadia, Sanjay Lazar, Captain Karve. Thank you so much for joining us.